What books are you looking forward to reading this summer? Well, for myself, I have about 12 reads on the TBR docket, from some pretty light beachy stuff to some of the most anticipated titles of the year. If you're looking for what you might want to have on your radar over the coming warm months, you've found the right video. The majority of these 12 titles I found across two 2023 preview lists that I've perused online, one from the New York Times Review of Books, and the other from Polygon.com, one of my most trusted sources for all things sci-fi, fantasy, video games, pop culture. I also found some further notes that informed my decisions for what titles should be on this list from a Vogue article that I'll also link below here. The first 9 books here will be in their chronological 2023 publication order. So to start the list off at number 1, Please Report Your Bug Here by Josh Riedel. Riedel? Riedel's debut novel is a smart and timely thriller about Ethan Block, a San Francisco entry-level developer who discovers a glitch in a popular dating app that transports him to other worlds. Or maybe it's not a glitch. Interesting note here, the author, Josh Riedel, was actually employee number 1 at Instagram and rose to become their head of community management throughout their Facebook acquisition. So certainly somebody who's well suited to write a book on San Francisco tech startups. I used to live in San Francisco for 5 years and sometimes get nostalgic for those days, and hence the inclusion of this book on this list. Number 2, The Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. Now, Newitz has written for Wired, Gizmodo, IO9, Ars Technica, Popular Science, and while I haven't read any of their works or novels before, this third novel has certainly caught my attention. Polygon says, set on an exoplanet in a distant future when nearly all conscious beings are considered people, from animals to artificial intelligence, written in 3 novellas set thousands of years apart, it's an epic geoengineering thought experiment on the scale of Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy and a refreshingly hopeful vision about humanity's fate among the stars. I personally haven't picked it up yet, but I have seen it at the bookstore and it looks pretty short at 338 pages. They're not long pages though. Number 3, Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. Originally published March 7th of this year, her debut novel is actually my current read, and I'm really enjoying it. Jackson makes her living as a book editor in New York and has actually published the likes of Cormac McCarthy, Gabrielle Zevin, and Kevin Kwan, famously Crazy Rich Asians. In Pineapple Street, Vogue says, the book follows 3 women in the Stockton family, a clan that made their money in real estate and left subsequent generations to alternately indulge in and wring their hands over it, their angst inflected with a very New York 1% class consciousness. Family members make their way from their nonprofit jobs and school fundraisers to tennis clubs and private planes. It's a lighthearted book that captures a slice of New York society, a guilty pleasure that also feels like a sociological text, punctuated with very particular references to restaurants, preschools, nightclubs, and other pillars of urban life in 2023. This book also moves quickly, and I would recommend it if you want a quick, light read for the summer. Number 4, Birnam Wood by Eleanor Catton. This is actually my next one up after I'm finished with Pineapple Street, and Catton won the 2013 Booker Prize for her first novel, The Luminaries. Haven't read that one, but for her next one here, New York Times calls Birnam Wood, and get this, an eco-feminist thriller, while Vogue calls it a far-left anti-capitalist manifesto, techno-futurist manual, and suburban ennui-driven domestic fiction. So you get a lot with this book. Birnam Wood, yes, that Birnam Wood from Macbeth, is in the book a guerrilla gardening collective in New Zealand struggling to stay solvent after its founder sets her sights on an abandoned farm. She tussles with an American billionaire over its fate. The group wants to use the land for crops, while he, supposedly, wants to build a doomsday bunker there. Catton is not just a master at spinning a web of competing philosophies. Her fully realized characters are deeply flawed, and yet you just can't help but love them. So very excited for this one. Seems timely for the moment we're in. At number 5, we have Flux by Jinwoo Chong. This book and my next one on the list were also both originally published in March of this year. The New York Times says the 3 main characters of this time-traveling debut are all grieving and, as you'd expect, in flux. Bo, who is 8, has just lost his mother, while Brandon, 28, has been offered a job at an experimental, if mercurial, time travel company. Blue, who's in his 40s, is a witness in the company's trial after 3 employee deaths. Along with explorations of time and identity, Chong weaves in some noirish elements too. Chong himself is a sales planner for the Times. And Polygon also notes here that Flux is a brilliant time travel puzzle box that has been compared to the novel This Is How You Lose the Time War. Probably good for anyone who enjoys time travel novels. At number 6, we have Commitment by Mona Simpson. And I'm going to read this one straight from the New York Times article here because I haven't picked this one up. California, 1975. Walter Aziz, an aspiring architect, needs to pay his way through Berkeley while his sister Lena, who is illegally attending a well-funded public school in LA, is angling for an Ivy League acceptance. But when their mother checks into a psychiatric facility, the siblings, along with their younger brother, must reconcile their commitments to their family and to themselves. I don't have a really deep rationale for why I want to read this one other than its California setting and the fact that it just sounds really good. Number 7, just published on May 2nd, is Chain Gang All-Stars by Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And again, to largely quote the Polygon notes on this one, the author of the short story collection Friday Black returns with his first novel set in a future where the most popular sports league in America isn't the NFL or the NBA, but something called CAPE, Criminal Action Penal Entertainment. A gladiatorial combat tournament where convicted murderers compete for their freedom in fights to the death. The fan favorite Thurwar is just a few matches away from a pardon when she discovers a way to help her fellow prisoners, but the private prison industrial complex has its own agenda. This book just sounds cool. Not that the private prison industrial complex is cool or a cool dystopia, but you know what I'm saying. Fans of Battle Royale, Hunger Games are sure to like this one. At number 8, we have The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. The New York Times offers to summarize here, saying Prospera, a utopian society, sends its elders to be reborn on the nursery, a nearby island. Proctor Bennett is the ferryman who shuttles the bodies back and forth between the islands, and though he is by all accounts successful, he is haunted by a recurring dream. But when his estranged father boards his boat with a message for him, the world is not the world, you're not you. Proctor sets off to make sense of his existence. Sounds promising. This one is a tongue twister. At number 9, published on May 9th, is The Making of Another Major Motion Picture by Tom Hanks. And yes, the actor Tom Hanks. While he has written a short story collection previously, this is his first novel, and the New York Times writes that he spins a classic Hollywood tale that leaps between decades and perspectives. Characters include a comic book artist in the 1970s, the present-day film director transforming that comic book into a franchise, and a film studies professor writing about the production. Comic books by Hanks himself and illustrated by the famous Robert Sikoriak are interspersed throughout the text. All right, coming into the home stretch here. To round out this list with my final 3, I'm going to include some titles that I did not find on a list anywhere, but have set as priorities for myself nonetheless. At number 10, Trust by Hernan Diaz. Hernan Diaz's novel from May 2022 won the 2023 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, and while it was on my radar before it won the prize, its win cemented its place on my list for the coming summer. I love the whole New York City roaring 20s, power, money setting. I think it's such just a cool cultural artifact. Haven't read anything by him before, but I understand he's pretty critically acclaimed for his prior novel, In the Distance. Number 11, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And while this one was originally published in March 2022, it has become a book talk hit sensation, currently being made into an Apple TV series starring Brie Larson. And I know, this book fits into the romance genre, which is not something I typically dive into very often or at all. But this book is so popular. Surely you must have seen it around. I figured, why not? Just take the plunge. How can I not? And number 12, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Certainly the longest book on this list, so I saved it for last, but I so far this year have read the first 3 Stormlight Archive books along with the Edge Dancer novella. I also plan to read the Dawn Shard novella as well, but just am kind of lumping that in with the Rhythm of War. Seriously, it's fantastic fantasy. No pun intended, but I can't wait to read this 4th and most recently released novel in the series from back in late 2020. And while Sanderson's currently writing the 5th book in the series out of 10, I'm not anticipating that one's going to come out until maybe mid-late 2024, so this'll tide me over for a while. If you haven't tried these books but enjoy epic fantasy, I might suggest that these could be for you. Honestly, yeah, can't wait to read this one. And there it is, my summer reading list. Let me know if any of these books have also made your list, and if you've read them and enjoyed them, not enjoyed them. If there's a title that you feel should absolutely be on my summer reading list, please let me know in the comments down below. Whether or not you do, please consider subscribing below if you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Until next time.